and their problems. Eventually, it occurred to me that this particular radiation, the 4G and the new mobile phones, was part of the problem. So I set up tests to check that, and sure enough, this is what the problem was. And from that time, I've been discovering that there are more and more people suffering from this. Now, some people are hypersensitive. I think that they possibly are the fortunate ones because they recognize that their bodies can tell them that there's a problem and they will make efforts to avoid it. But I've seen those who have not been sensitive getting very serious illnesses indeed. I know some very hypersensitive patients of mine have written to ministers about their problem, asking for help. And what they're told is that the research shows that this cannot be affecting them. And this is the answer. Now, we're not all clones, are we? We're all different. So what applies to one person does not affect everybody. But unfortunately, the precautionary principle is discarded and people are treated as if we're all the same. Now, ICNIRP, the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, they have produced some guidelines which our ministers and our authorities rely on. They have been doing this for many years now. The new guidelines have been published and very soon will be in print, and nothing has changed for 20 years. Interestingly and very importantly, the new guidelines dismiss completely evidence and significance of non-thermal effects. What they're saying is that the problem from radiation can come from heating. If there's heating of more than 1 degree, then it can be a problem. But they ignore completely the effect, the biological effect of the electromagnetic radiation. They just deny it. So the new guidelines also dismiss completely the existence of the risk of cancer in long-term avid users of mobile phones. The IARC is the International Agency for Research in Cancer. They've classified radio frequencies as a possible human carcinogen, and their studies were not included in the recent guidelines. This document, these guidelines, which they rely on for so long, they're full of flaws, such as the rejection of evidence due to lack of mechanistic explanation. They say this doesn't explain, we can't explain how this happens, so we reject it. Have you heard such nonsense? Do you all understand gravity? Do you understand the mysteries of the universe? Do we reject them? No. Another flaw is the lack of sufficiently powered information used to prove a lack of association between cause and effect. In reality, the information is not powerful enough. There's not enough data to prove anything. It's a rejection of the precautionary principle. Yet these studies that don't have enough data, they use them to prove that there isn't an effect. Genetic variability, as I mentioned, we're all different, so you can't apply the studies to everybody on the planet. There's always a biased selection of studies. This happens all the time in science. Also, they make conclusions lacking basis in fact. Conclusions which differ from the substance of a study or avoid important caveats. I've seen many studies over my lifetime where the actual conclusions are different to what's in the actual study paper. And of course, people who are busy, medics, doctors, and so on, they just look at the bottom line, look at the conclusions. This is how we are fraudulently misled. Other limitations are the problems in the scope or design of a study. But the greatest flaw of all is the rejection of the non-thermal or electromagnetic effect. And despite the recommendations that more research on this be done, the guidelines have not been revised to reflect this and are still being quoted by the authorities. Now, we all cherish our children, and insurance for children in schools. This is a very important topic. A letter was sent to the Department of Education inquiring about insurance against the effects of Wi-Fi in schools. A reply stated that boards of management of schools have responsibility for this. But the insurance companies, underwriters, will not provide insurance. It's called Exclusion 22. The response of Insurance Ireland to all of this is to ask the EPA. So things just go round in circles. One person passes the buck to somebody else. Beware of people claiming to be scientists who report that EM radiation or electromagnetic radiation cannot be harmful because the frequencies are lower than that of visible light. This is grossly misleading because natural light is not pulsed or polarized, and there are other technical explanations from a man in Holland called Vriens, V-R-I-E-N-S. If any of you have problems with this rubbish, this is the man to go to. He's on the internet. Now, I would suggest that you all do what you can to make sure that our public representatives are aware of this. And what I will only do is give a vote to anybody who has some kind of understanding of this problem, because too much interest is in the business and the technology, and our governments have been promoting this for some time. Since 1996, Dáil Éireann has not approved this technology. They just passed over the regulation to the industry, and this is where we are today. So there's a lot of money being spent on this, and they're not going to go back on this because of the expenditure. So we have to fight ourselves. Our public representatives will not change this for us. We need to seek out those who will be supportive of us. Thank you very much for your attention, everybody.